All right, everybody. We'll let everybody get on in. We're just going to wait a minute to let people fill up in the room.
So intense. I'm watching the number down there.
I know.
Yeah, right.
I'm glad I'm glad people got this link. I was a little nervous there for a second.
Yeah, at first I thought you were recording and it was just going to be us. And we were going to just upload it somewhere. I thought, oh, it's just us. Okay, great.
We
Awesome.
have an audience. All right.
All right. Well, I'm going to let everybody continue to file in, but I'm going to kick us off. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, depending on where it is you're tuning in from today. My name is Amanda, and I'm the Managing Director of Stage32, proud to oversee this community for the last 11 years. And I wanted to welcome you to a special webcast today where we are going to be talking about writing television. And before we jump in, you guys, I wanted to just, for those of you who are new here today, I wanted to just jump in and explain what Stage32 is if you aren't familiar. So Stage32 is the largest online platform that is connecting and educating the global entertainment industry. We have created a community of 1 million creatives and professionals worldwide. So you can join the Stage32 community for free. All you have to do is go to stage32.com and create a free profile, much like you would for LinkedIn. So there's 3 pillars to Stage32, and the first pillar is most important, and that is our community. So on Stage32, when you create a profile, you're able to create a profile similar to like what you'd see on LinkedIn, but what's specific about Stage32 is that it's dedicated to the entertainment industry. So you can put your bio up, and then you can also put up things like on-set photos. If you have reels or a short film, you could put videos up. You can place your log lines. You can put your credits based on any movies that you work in, because everybody that's in the Stage32 community is there to be able to network with each other, and specifically with the goal of working in film, television, and digital. Since I know we have a lot of writers here today, I wanted to point out in our community, we have our logline section. So if you're testing out a new logline on a TV script or a feature that you're working on, you can put the logline up here in the Stage32 community, and then you can have Stage32 members provide their thoughts and their comments in terms of like how they feel about your specific logline. So that's a really, really great thing that we can do in the community part of Stage32. Additionally, we have our Stage32 Lounge, and we have the most active online forum in the industry. We have over 200,000 discussions going on about all areas of the craft and the business. So if you want some support on anything that you're writing or any projects that you're working on, you can go into the Stage32 Lounge and get support from people from all over the world, professionals as well as creatives just like you. So that's the first part of Stage32. Our second pillar is our education. We are known as the world-class leaders in entertainment industry education. We have over 2,000 hours of webinars, classes, and labs taught by the brightest minds in the business. We have the largest online library, and we are very proud to call Netflix as our education partner, as well as the Cannes Film Festival, the American Film Market, and dozens of other film commissions and film organizations worldwide. And then finally, our third pillar is our Stage32 script services. Our Stage32 script services serves as a marketplace for our community who, if you want feedback on scripts that you're working on, or if you'd like to test a pitch out before you go to the marketplace, we work with hundreds of development executives, mentors that serve as mentors, development executives, managers, agents, producers from all over the place that provide feedback for the Stage32 community. So if you're not a Stage32 member, I highly recommend that you join today. As I mentioned, it's free, and you will be instantly connected to the million people in our community, much like the people that are on the screen here today, who would serve as mentors to our community. Mike, in fact, is one of our favorite Stage32 educators. And so just so you guys know, today is we would like to call today TV Day. We're kicking it off with this exciting panel, but we have a really, really cool announcement today at 4 o'clock. So if you enjoyed today, we want you to continue the momentum and join us at 4 o'clock today Pacific. in the Stage 32 Writers Room. We're going to be bringing in our founder and CEO, Richard R.B. Botto. He has some very, very huge, exciting, amazing news that he is going to announce specifically to the Writers Room. So if you are a writer and you're interested in writing television, or if you want to support your fellow TV writers, I highly encourage you to be in the Writers Room today at 4 o'clock for this announcement, because you will be so inspired and you will be providing support for your fellow TV writers. So you don't want to miss it. And Jason will go over how you can get into the Writers Room today at 4 o'clock. So without further ado, we have a kick-ass panel today. Oh my God, you guys are in for a treat. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason, who heads up our Stage 32 script services. And Jason's going to be your moderator today and taking you through everything. So thank you everybody for being here. And oh, and actually, if anybody is here, we'd love for you to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. So if you could follow us at Stage 32. I'll stick that in the chat box. And please, if you find something that you're inspired from today, share it on social. You know, our community loves to give back, so please give back to the panelists who are giving their time to you today. All right, Jason, I'm going to turn it on over to you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening again, folks, wherever you are. It is 11:41 Pacific time, and it's your time wherever you are. So thank you for taking the time out to join us today. This is a phenomenal panel, and it's something that I'm very excited to be a part of and host. You know, obviously, we've said the golden age of television is here. I think we're probably in the platinum age of television. We've gone platinum now. And so much of that is due to quite literally people on this screen. These folks here bring us the television that we've come to love, and in a lot of ways sort of expect in this golden age and platinum age of television. So it's my joy, it's my privilege to be able to host this today. A couple things before we kick it off, just to kind of set the agenda for today. This is very much interactive. You are going to see there's a questions box or a little questions panel. That is where you can ask your questions of these panelists. Make sure you ask them. I will curate them for you. Feel free to ask anything you like in terms of creative, the business, the process, things that you would like to discuss. Start filling in those as well. The other thing I want to make sure that people are aware of, we have a lounge post going on. Amanda mentioned the lounge earlier. You can click that link right there, which I just put in the chat box. That's also where you can immortalize much of what you hear in this room today. You're going to hear some fantastic insights. You're going to hear some great nuggets. Make sure that you're able to, as Amanda said, pay that forward to your fellow community members. That's where we want to put all of the insights that you hear. We're going to have some great Q&A. We're going to have some great insights from these folks. We're going to answer your questions, and then we're going to go into a little bit of what the Writers Room is, because many of the folks on this panel have already been in the Writers Room. And for those who have not, John and Nina, I'm coming for you. So you'll be guests very soon as well. But let's kick things off very quickly. I would love for each of you to sort of very quickly introduce yourselves. I certainly cannot do it justice. So let's start with John and Nina. Please feel free to introduce yourselves and tell us what you're working on right now. Nina, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Nina Fiore, and yeah, I'm from the Bronx, New York. I live in LA now. I don't know how I ended up where I ended up, but I just got really blessed, and I met John in LA, and he taught me how to be a lady in the office and how to type.
Not sure about that, but
because I didn't know how to type when I first met John. And you know, just briefly about us, you know, we're both former athletes, so you know, we kind of write through a lot of pain, because sometimes writing is pain. John had a great idea for a show one day, and while we were in the office in the trench, basically as assistants, John came up to me and was like, "Hey, you want to work on this thing?" And we were both in, you know, no offense, but miserable relationships, and so we just basically stayed at work all the time and just worked together. And I had more fun with him than anybody else, so it just kind of stuck, and we enjoyed the process together, and just kept going on. I don't know how much of an intro you want about us, but
That's a great start. John, take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, Nina and I are about as different as you can be. I mean, we even have white and black shirts on, which fits because Nina always says she's the criminal, or no, I'm the No,
No,
Jesus
you're
Christ.
the cop and I'm
She's
the criminal.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't even get that right.
That's all.
But we're, you know, she's from the Bronx. I grew up in Orange County. So on paper, we are totally different. But like Nina said, we kind of share similar neuroses, and we were kind of a haven for each other. And I think we had both had bad experiences with partners before. So when we tried being partners with each other, it was something we kind of tread lightly around, but it turned out to be the best thing we could have ever done. And Nina is one of the most important women in my life. So I am thankful every day for having met her.
That's
Right
fantastic.
back
And
at you, buddy.
there, and obviously now you're working together on Handmaid's Tale, which
Yes.
is, and what season are you on? Right? Season September it premieres.
Yeah, September 14th, season 5 drops. John and I wrote 502, which was a big deal for us this year. Normally we kind of write a middle episode, and this year Bruce was like, hey, why don't you get episode 2? And we were like, just kind of gulped, and we're like, all right, let's do it. And then John and I have a bunch of pilots in development and a few other things, irons in the fire, as every person on the Zoom probably experiences. You got to have a lot of pots cooking on the stove. So you don't lose your mind and don't put too many eggs in one old basket, you know? So we're always kind of bobbing and weaving and jamming on a bunch of things. And just, you know, fun fact about John and I got rejected from every writing program known to man in town. So if you're hearing no's, it's okay. And I don't mean like we got rejected in like the finals or semifinals. Like, yo, John and I got like rejected, like straight up in the beginning, like first round, it was a wrap. So, you know, it just keep writing because fuck it, you know. I mean, someone says no, you know, who cares? Like, just keep doing it because, hey, that's what we ended up doing. We were like, you
Absolutely.
know, no, we're just going to come
Absolutely.
after you even harder. So
That's great. Well, I see Mike, you're nodding your head vigorously. I think that's a good indication we should go to you next as well. So Mike Gaio, a dear friend of Stage 32.
No, I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly about that. You having a little bit of PTSD. No, Jason, thank you. I'm really glad to be here. Really happy to be partnered with Stage 32 with the mentorship initiative, and that's been going great. So we'll chat more about that in a bit. But yeah, I mean, Nina's right. I think I did the fellowship season once and was like, okay, this is not for me. I'm not good at this part or this thing. But no, I got my shot as an assistant. I was a writer's assistant on the show called Claws, which was on TNT.
yes, love
Yeah, no, Claws was a great, show. It was great working with all those folks. Janine Sherman Barrois was the showrunner. She was fantastic, and still today is one of my mentors. I love her to death. And so yeah, season 1 I started as the writer's PA, and then season 2 moved up to writer's assistant. And Janine read a couple of my samples and recommended me to her old manager, which became my manager. And then I got my first staff writer job on Ginny and Georgia, which is a Netflix show. Mm-hmm. And then after season 1 of Ginny and Georgia, I got on Insecure for their final season, and then I went back to Ginny and Georgia for season 2. And since then have been developing my own stuff. I have a show I sold last year that we went into a writer's room very quickly for, and we were in production at the top of this year, and now it's coming out in a couple of weeks. It's coming out August 11th. It's called Send Help. It's a half-hour dark comedy. You can watch it on AMC's All Black platform, which is an app that you can download. It's a new streamer that they have under their belt. And I'm really excited about it. And just, been developing other stuff that I'm sure we can discuss.
Absolutely.
At some point in this discussion.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. And folks out there watching, this is not a technical glitch. This is not an error. You are seeing 2 of the same person. You're seeing two different guys. They look very similar. They are twins. Jason and Jamie Neese from the Umbrella Academy. Jamie, let's start with you.
Sure. Hey, you guys, we're excited to be here. Yes, there's two of us. Right now,
They always start with Jamie, might I add. So this tracks.
I'm the older brother by 17 minutes. It just, people can feel that. We are, yeah, that's right. We just finished up producing Umbrella Academy. Me and my brother have been writing partners for many decades. And we direct and produce as well. Yeah, we've been busy. You know, I hear all these fine folks saying, right, don't stop. Don't listen to people telling you no, because we've heard many no's throughout our lives. And we just never stopped. We have a background in creative writing, but we were always interested in show running and producing and directing. So we do a little bit of everything. So yeah, we got a couple of projects going. We got one with Don Cheadle that we're running around town that we created with him. But even with that, our first couple of pitches have been no so far. You figure you got
Don Cheadle on the Zoom, and you got
Don on the route, and you know, just to the point that it's a lot of times it's not about necessarily your project. It might not meet the bucket or the mandate, or they had a bad breakfast or whatever the fuck. You know, I never know.
Or the format is from a country committing a war across the globe. That also has happened.
Yeah, that project it has a Eastern European behind it, IP behind it, so we had to pause on it. But anyway, but yeah, we direct commercials too. We just did a commercial that we were excited about, and yeah, we just, you know, we love to write and be in the biz and work with fine people like you guys.
That's fantastic.
I guess I would add on to that and say that Mike, there, we're working with Matica and Jeff Tyler. We developed a project that we partnered up with Peyton Manning. So I know that they do the show that you're working on right now. So I guess shout out to Matica Productions.
Yeah, Jeff Toller and his team, we've been working on, and that's another thing we can discuss. Every overnight success is a decade in the making, it feels like, at least for me and Jason anyway. But we met Jeff, I'd say 3.5 years ago. And we're 6'5" twins from North Carolina. We had no choice. We had to play basketball. And he's really, as Mike probably knows, he's obsessed with sports stuff. And we ended up developing a show based around our time playing basketball in the late 90s in the South, when the tobacco industry was dying, and then just like the blatant racism that was happening in the sports arena. And Jeff has been a huge fan of us, and you know, we're working with Peyton Manning now, but as Mike knows, and a lot of these folks know, it's a small circle, right? Like, all you got to do is say 4 or 5 people you're working with, and you know, you're gonna have people start nodding heads. So to that point, not only do you never give up, but you just keep making new relationships and networking and believing, you know, that you'll get there.
Absolutely. Well, it's, you know, it's interesting. As I was putting this panel together, I knew there would be crossover, and something else that sort of sprang to my mind as we were putting this panel together is that thematically, so much of what your shows tackle sort of individually are conversations that are going on around the country, around the world, internationally, certainly. And I just want to touch on that for a second, because as you're sort of putting together shows, you're writing your shows, you're breaking story, you're developing, your world building, I would love to talk about how those conversations, is it life imitating art? Is it art imitating life in a lot of sense? How do you find that balance as you're creating? John and Nina, why don't you start with that, and then we'll go to Mike.
Well, I mean, we, you know, on The Handmaid's Tale, we always go back to Margaret Atwood and the original text. And, you know, she has famously talked about the fact that when she was working on that in Berlin back in the early 80s, you know, all she did was research things that were going on. And the frightening thing about that is that everything in that has happened. There is not a single, you know, it is, you know, it's speculative fiction. It's on the edge of sci-fi, but it's not really that fi. And that has always been our thing. So generally when we have a topic or something like that, if we have an episode that is tackling something, we look at the basics of it. And the weird thing is that truth is often stranger than fiction and more disturbing. I think we found out in a lot of ways. There was an episode last year, J.C. Heldrich wrote it, that was about one of our main characters in the past, before Gilead, trying to get an abortion. And she was doing that because she already had a child. And all she does, she ends up running into this basically Byzantine system that if a woman wants to make a decision, she can't, because she's sent in 14 different directions to try to confuse her and not lead her down the path that she may want to go, when all she's trying to do is get a service for herself. And it was kind of frightening how difficult that process was. Just, you know, Googling is a nightmare to try to find information about that. But that's basically how we approach it. We go at everything from the ground and we follow it through, and we usually get scared of it because of that.
Sure.
Yeah, we're always following the story organically. It just, you know, for whatever crazy, wacky reason, like, you know, like John said, you just can't make this shit up, right? You know, and it's just, you end up going like, I swear we don't have a crystal ball. No one's like, you know, consulting a psychic, as we don't really want to be that relevant, trust me. But it's odd, you know, it's powerful and odd at the same time. I mean, season 5, not that any spoilers are going to be dropped whatsoever, but, you know, season 5 should definitely come with a little bit of a trigger warning, like the whole season in many ways. And, you know, it's like when we were at home and you like look at January 6th, like when you look at the insurrection, I'm like, didn't we write that? Like, I mean, Margaret wrote it first and then we did a version of that, except our outfits were way cooler than those yahoos and that furry shit. But like, but it was like, wait a minute. So it gets a little like, oh, you know, so I have that therapist on a speed dial. So that'll
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Mike, obviously, you know, again, it's in terms of themes, you've you've written on several different shows, you've worked on several different shows, but thematically, I feel like they always have somewhat of a similar core to them. Would you say that's accurate?
First, I'd like to say several is a stretch. It's been a couple. No, but I've written on an hour dramedy, like YA, and I've written on a half-hour, you know, comedy, you know, dramedy that's like, you know, more millennial based. So for me, I personally in my writing lean towards like purpose-driven content. I always like whatever I'm writing about or any project that I'm working on to feel like it has some level of importance to it, or I'm teaching something, but while also being very entertaining. I lean towards, you know, very specific stories, very uniquely specific stories that have a universal message, and something that like people can all walks of life can relate to. I'll say for Ginny and Georgia, what we really wanted to hone in on specifically was about like just the relationship between Ginny and Georgia, like the way that they kind of flow, especially since, you know, Ginny is this biracial girl that's moving throughout the world and has a different outlook on that world that her mother has, who's, you know, a white woman. But also the fact that Ginny is if you haven't seen the show, sorry for the spoilers, but Ginny, you know, as a teen is like self-harming, and you don't ever see a teen that's a teen of color that's self-harming on television. So that's something that was like kind of like important for us to talk about, reflect on, and things like that. So for me, in my personal writing, but in shows that I'm drawn to when I'm on staffing, it's always about like, what is the underlying message, or what's the underlying issue that we're really wanting to tackle, but still wanting it to be very entertaining. But yeah, like that's those are the things I'm most drawn to.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we were talking about earlier, like the show that Nina and John work on is so amazing and dystopic. And, you know, I remember reading like, you know, Orwellian fiction now is completely what it is in real life. But, you know, to the point of like how thematics and world building, even within the same genre, can be so different. I think you really look no further than our two shows, because Umbrella Academy is certainly a family piece that focuses more on the fact that they're highly dysfunctional, and we're of course playing it through the genre of superhero think when we were pitched, it was X-Men meets, a Royal Tenenbaums, So it's so interesting that you can really have fun through thematics, even inside a genre where you think there's not a lot of room to expand in that way. But then you can also do things in a very serious light with what they're doing with Handsmaid that is just mind-blowingly entertaining, but eye-opening and just kind of disturbing. And I need to watch your show, Mike, and Jeff would be upset to hear that I haven't watched it either. But I've heard that there are a lot of varied tones that are happening with how that relationship goes. So
you just admitted on recorded that you didn't watch it. Jeff's going to see this, bro.
Yeah,
it's okay, Jay.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that was my point, is that world building can really have a lot of space to go wherever the writer's mind wants to take it, as long as you kind of know where that end heads.
Sure, absolutely. And you guys are obviously, Jason and Jamie were in the writer's room with us last week, and we talked about that. We talked about how world building is largely also character building as much as it is sort of building, the larger mythology. I want to switch gears very quickly. We're getting a lot of great questions in, and I think this is a good one just to get out of the way, because it establishes the foundation for everything we'll talk about here and everything that we do at Stage 32. Is a degree necessary for screenwriting? It seems like a lot of opportunities come from internships or other programs just for college students.
I mean, I would say, just to chime in, that Jamie and I have a BFA in writing, and it took us daggone close to 8 or 9 years before we optioned or sold a project as a writers, and we were producing long before that. So my answer would be that the best way to learn how to be a screenwriter, no offense, film schools, but is to write as much as you can. Obviously, you need to know the format. Use great things like Stage 32, of course.
To echo that, hell yeah, because I had a 0.8 in college. So, I mean, the fact that I'm, I don't know how I graduated, just by the skin of my teeth. So, I'm like the poster child for, you learn it by doing, or like Jason said, coming to Stage 32, or some of the other elements that are out there that are helpful. But I just learned by doing, like, not like anyone's gonna look at like, oh, I got this credential or whatever. They just want to know that you can tell a good story and tell it well, and maybe not have a ton of typos. And my grammar's for shit, but I'm working on it. So.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I didn't have opportunities in organizations like Stage 32, so I went to USC for film school. And my purpose going there, I didn't go there for writing. I deliberately knew that you can help people get better at writing, but you can't really teach it. It's something that's in you that you have to find and work at. And like Jason was saying, you just have to freaking do it. But I went there to learn about production. I wanted to learn about sound and cameras and everything, because I knew nothing. And then the other part of it, and I think that's what's great about online services now that are able to connect you to people, and the fact that we have this whole world, is that I needed connections. And I ended up going and sitting in the head of the department's office every day asking her questions, and she helped me get a job. So to tell you the truth, I went into a lot of debt to be able to get one job. So I think there are much more efficient ways to do it, rather than still paying off student loans like I am. And I'm sure lots of other people are.
That's a great investment versus reward. Now, Mike, if I remember correctly, you were originally going to be a doctor. Is that right? Were you going to go to med school at one point?
Yeah. I was pre-med in college and quickly realized that like organic chemistry and I had no chemistry. And that was not going to work. But I grew up writing. I loved to write. I just didn't think that it was a career path for me. It just wasn't an option that was presented to me growing up. And of course, my parents wouldn't be able to do that. In terms of their immigrant backgrounds, the only thing that really mattered to them was like becoming an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor. So those were my three options. But it wasn't until college that I, took it upon myself to kind of like figure out what I wanted to do for me. And like I said, I grew up writing. So I was like, okay, let me try this writing thing out, and changed my major to theater with a concentration in creative writing. But to the point everyone's making, after college, I decided I wanted to move to LA and wasn't sure if I should go to grad school or not, or just start working. I was working for American Idol while they were in Boston, because I'm from Boston, while they were doing their Boston audition. and just happened to mention, hey, I'm moving to LA in a month. And they said, hey, once you move, come work with us. So I was like, okay. As soon as I moved to LA, I had a job. So I thought to myself, well, let me just continue to build on my network, and like everyone is saying, keep writing, keep learning. I took one screenwriting class in college, and just since then just kept writing scripts. I just, you learn by like trial and error. I got, the script writer's Bible. I was taking, little seminars here and there, just trying to figure things out. And for me, I felt like I look back at it, I feel like if I were to go to grad school, it would have been just for the network. I feel like going to grad school is 60% for the network. And if you know that before you, apply and give all your money to them and build all that debt, then I'd say for someone starting out, if you're not going to grad school, it's really important to build your network of people and just to keep writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to jump on to what, and then we can move on what John said. When me and Jason came out here, we were obsessed with learning to walk around the entire thing of production. Our background was definitely in creative writing, not screenplay writing or film per se. I thought I was going to be probably a college professor trying to sell books of short stories, but I was really obsessed with learning what a showrunner was, how to produce, post-production, production. So when we got out here for the first 10 years, like Jason said, I mean, we took any job you could. He was working in-house at Spyglass. We were working in post, like he was a production PA. But that 10 years it took for us to be honest with you, to really figure out what and refine our voice. We really realized we love grounded sci-fi. We love really unique perspective character dramas and thrillers and horror and all that stuff. But we wrote 20 scripts that no one will ever see that were horrifying, but they were just done during our I think that it's just
less horrifying each time.
Yeah, it got a little less horrifying each time. But I think the most important thing is that we were working inside of the industry that we wanted to be a part of, because a lot of our friends, I have lots of people out there. I feel like some people will sit at Starbucks and wait to be realized how, the next Soderbergh or Spielberg, and me and Jason very early on said, we'll do whatever it takes at 25 coffees, whatever you want. I just want to learn the business. And so I think that either you kind of come out of grad school or out of film school and you have this thing where it's like, well, I need, I should move directly into that thing, or you kind of come out and say, I'm going to hustle and grind, and no isn't a word in my vocabulary, and I'm just going to keep refining my craft while I learn other aspects of the industry. Because I think in TV especially, it's hard to just be a writer. You kind of need to learn a little bit of everything, kind of like what John was saying. And I think that it also makes it easier to write when you know the obstructions or the issues with production, so that it might make you a better writer when it goes to camera and all that.
Sure. Well, I think that one of the biggest misconceptions that most film school students have when they walk out of film school is they think they're going to go walk on the Paramount lot and they say, okay, where's my overall deal? Like, I just got out of school. Where is it?
And I think that John really nailed it though. If you go to film school, sitting at the head of the department and asking questions, I think that networking, that was the old-fashioned way of networking. I think that you made the best, and it obviously translated very well to get you to the first steps of what you've now gone on to do with you and Nina's writing.
I'm still waiting for my overall deal, by the way.
Yeah.
Right?
I did.
Me both, brother.
I did go from USC to the Paramount lot, but I was answering someone's phone. So
there you go.
But that's
no
the other
overall
thing. That's
deal.
darkness. Like a lot of people, I'm like, well, I mean, the thing that I wish Jamie and I would have done is just come out here 4 years earlier to become PAs earlier, because it feels like it always ends up answering phones or taking
that first job is your grad school in a lot of ways, for sure.
Oh, sure.
We have another great.
I think before we move on to, I think one thing to note for everyone listening is that there's no wrong way.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? There's no wrong way to get in. You know what I mean? You can tell from our experiences that we've all kind of gotten in different ways. So it's really just about the work ethic too, and just grinding, as Jamie said. You really have to put your foot to the pavement to really get at it.
And if you're a true writer, shouldn't matter if you're working 14-hour production days. You must be writing no matter in the cracks of your day, and that just has to be how it is. It's just
Yeah.
Yeah, John and I used to write at 6 a.m. before our day jobs, before our assistant jobs, and we were like coming all crusty, and it totally messed up our writing vibe because we used to be night writers, and it was like, well, you're shifting, you're gonna be morning writers because we're just too crispy at night. And now it's like my best work is done early in the morning now, thanks to that, and very grateful. But yeah, you have to grind it out. There's a whole insane ocean of people that are trying to do what you're doing. And it's gonna be like, what are you gonna do that's different? And how many scripts are you gonna have ready so that when you're ready, when opportunity meets preparation, because at the end of the day, it's like you can make all the connections you want, but if you're still the guy, and I was that person who was, oh yeah, I'm writing a script, and I'm like, age 35 for like 6 years, and and not able to work past fear or whatever. And at the end of the day, it comes down to like Jason and Jamie were talking about, like getting all those scripts, and maybe those first 20 weren't like perfect out the gate, but it's a craft, and you just learn by doing it.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. Let's jump into the process of actually being in a writer's room. Hey, Nisi has a great question here. When working on a project, and we'll throw this out to everyone, when working on a project in a writer's room, how long is the writing process? Since it's on streamers, do you all just bang out over the next few weeks and months, or go weekly like a network show? And let's start there, and then we'll kind of go from there. That's a lot to bite off already. So let's start with John and Nina, and then go to Mike, because Mike just came off his own writer's room as well.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You say how long? It never really ends, to tell you the truth. It's like a year, to tell you the truth. But the actual writing process, we usually meet as a room and we talk for like 6 weeks, just about the biggest picture of all. We go like 30,000 feet. We think about the big thematic and character things that we want to accomplish. And then usually we have an idea of the first 4 or 5 episodes, and we know the ending, or maybe we know where we might end. Then the process is, each writer usually gets an assignment where they're going to do, like we had episode 2 this year, and we usually come in with ideas for it. We may have, the story may be kind of there because of these discussions, but it also may just be totally blank. It depends on which one you get. And then we spend like 2 weeks in the room discussing, whether you're bringing stuff to it, or whether, oftentimes that stuff just gets all thrown out. But eventually you kind of bring that individual episode together. We use cards, we use old-fashioned cards, but we've tried to go digital, but our showrunner really doesn't like that. But we just use cards, we put them up, we get every scene to where we roughly think it's going to work, and then we do a beat sheet and an outline. And the outlines we do are a little bit different on Handmaid's Tale. They're a little bit more like short stories. Our boss likes to have it run that way so that it is basically just, instead of having most of the plot, it's POVs of the characters. Because our show is so much about, people having different, you might say a word in a scene and that's the entire scene. So we have to do a lot with very little. So in the outline is really where most of our work gets kind of ground out, and we get all of the POVs in every scene, the rough look of the show, and then usually writing a script, which takes maybe another week after that to do a rough draft, is a pretty quick process after all that is ironed out. I mean, did I miss anything, Nina?
No, well, no, you got it. I mean, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, it's like a 6-week, I'd say, process, but that's just the basic, the being in the trench. Sorry, I interrupted.
Okay.
No, it's about right. I mean, not including the revisions that happen afterwards with production and all of the other things. Because then once you start adding more people to it, then you're like, some locations you can't get, or all those other things, and then you have to, like, hopefully you don't have to go back into the room to re-break anything, but every once in a while that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mike, I'm gonna modify this question a bit, because we got one from Erica James, and I want to read the whole thing. It says, "Hi from the UK. I'm a screenwriter and a TV researcher. My question is for Mike. Insecure is a show about many of us who have grown up inspired by. I'd like to know your writing process in general, from idea to actually writing. Do you use cards, beat sheets? How do you know an idea is worth developing and tackling?" Great question.
That's a great question. Before I answer that question, the previous question, I mean, we could go for like an hour or two on that question, only because it's determined by so many things. Yes, you could spend 6 weeks kind of like trying to break a season, but it's also based on like how many weeks your room is. If your room is like 20 to 24 weeks, which is like generally like a cable or streaming room, then you may or may not have time for a lot of brainstorming that early. But for the most part, I mean, yeah, what John and Nina said was very accurate. For this question, how do I kind of like start? My writing process starts with the concept. This concept has to be strong. Like I have to know kind of like generally like where I'm going with it, what I want to do with it tonally, where it's going. So it starts with the idea. Generally, I try to iron out what the log line is, because I feel like a log line is a very concise way to tell someone what your story is about, but also a concise way for you to figure out for yourself if how clear is this idea. If I can explain it in a sentence or two, then like, and I'm really happy with that, I'm like, okay, great. I maybe this has legs here, and I can like make something out of this. So usually I'll begin with the concept and just kind of like ironing out like a short log line, a concise log line, to kind of like see if it feels clear to other people what it is I'm trying to do. And then, like you mentioned, Jason, I'll do a beat sheet and kind of like iron out some ideas and just see where I want my characters to go. Outlining is incredibly important. I know some people who say they won't outline, and I don't understand why or how they're not able, they don't outline. I think outlining is very important, especially like, say for instance, you're writing an hour drama and you don't outline, and you're halfway through and you don't know what's next. You don't know what's happening next or what you're doing. You're stuck. So I think outlining is very important. So that's generally my process. I'll think of a concept first, something really strong, something that, you know, I'll run by people, see if it resonates with them. Then my log line, and then a beat sheet, and then I'll start outlining. Lately, since I've been kind of developing a lot of stuff with some folks, treatments have been great. You know, treatment before my outline. I'll do like a beat sheet, then a treatment that clarifies, okay, what the show's about. It would usually include your log line, the tone, what the tone of the show is, why is this show important? Why do you want to create this thing? Why are you the only one that can do it? And then, you know, break down what the pilot is about, and of course, like summaries for like season 1, season 2, and things like that. And then I would get into like outlining the pilot and writing the script. So that's generally my process.
There you go. There you go. Sarah Rose Friedman has a great question. And I'm gonna start with the Nice brothers on this one too, because we just sort of talked about this earlier. What is the amount of balance between the writer and the actor to make a lead character likable? A lot of your shows have characters that this is key for. And we talked about Aidan Gallagher. We talked about Robert Sheehan, obviously bringing so much to those characters. But what is the balance? And I'll throw it out to everybody, but I'm curious, speaking about an ensemble show like that.
I mean, I think one element that should be mentioned for sure are the directors, the visiting directors that come along, because obviously after it's been scripted and gone through the process that's been so well laid out by all of our friends up here, when it hits production, you're going to really see what happens with the actor interacting with the director, but also the writer assigned to sets to make sure that continuity is and that performance is being captured correctly. I think the balance is in different. Every show's different. I think for our show, season 3, you know, everybody by season 2, I think kind of knew where their character was. Like Robert Sheehan and Aidan and all of them. I think there's a lot of trust put on their interpretations of what's happening in Steve Blackman's writer's room. And obviously the visiting directors are always the ones that they'll come in and do a block, which is 2 episodes at once for us, and then they leave. So there is this like faith of how the actor will be performing based off what happens from the writer's room. I don't know what the balance is, like the percentage wise. There's a lot of conversations that happen with the writer and the actor on set. I think it's probably different every day and every show, depending on the content.
Yeah, you know, Steve Blackman, the master whiz guru behind Umbrella Academy, he would do, I can't remember what he called it. It was like coffee and donuts, or like he had a meeting that he would do with each actor before each episode, and no one was in there. It was just, it'd be him and Tom Hopper, him and Elliot, him and whoever, Aiden. And I think that it was because we're always learning. Me and Jason are always trying to grow. I think everybody agrees that you can never stop learning. And I think the Umbrella is a complicated show in a lot of ways. There's just so many characters, and it probably overwhelming at times. But I think he gleaned a lot from those meetings where he's sitting with them and discussing their character. And I think that he's probably getting a lot of what they are, especially season one, of who they were as humans as well. And I think that really informed a lot of their characters that you see on the screen today. Because like we were talking about with Aiden, he's such an impressive young man. When we met him, he was 13 or something, and now he's 18. But you know, this kid, he speaks at the UN and he's like an ambassador. I think that all of those things that naturally were part of Aiden's life helped dictate.
Yeah, and just to add, I think it's kind of strange because at a certain point, the writers are gleaning what the actors bring to the performance, and it's informing them back in the room in future episodes and seasons. So it really becomes this like really fun, I don't know, back and forth that's involving all sides, you know?
Well, yeah, and we've heard stories of actors who are meant to be on one episode or one season and get killed off, but they're too good they have to bring them back. Folks, I have an announcement. I'm afraid that we have to let Mike go in this fast-paced industry that we're in. He is late for another meeting. But Mike, thank you so much, my friend. Any closing words before you depart?
Yeah. You were all in great hands. Of course, these guys know what they're talking about. I'm so sorry I have to head out. I had a hard out at like 12:15. But it was so nice meeting you guys. It's so nice talking to all of you, and to everyone listening. Keep writing. You're gonna get to where you want to be for sure. Just keep at it. But thank you guys.
Good night.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
I think that we pushed our next meeting, so yeah.
All right, yeah, we'll go for another about 20 minutes or so if we can, if that works for everyone, and then we'll sort of wrap it up. But I want to stay on this line of questioning about character and character development. We're getting a lot of questions about building character, and a lot of that, John and Nina, starts obviously in the room before you even have actors in mind. What of yourself do you bring to a character as a writer? What are you sort of discovering as you're going along? And then how do you evolve a character when you realize something's either working really well or not working at all as you had hoped?
Well, I think in general, I think when you're looking at how to build a character, I mean, I think one great rule of thumb is, you want to keep them in the gray. It's like, I think that's one of the reasons why Serena Joy is such a fascinating woman or a character to write for, which John writes particularly well, is because, she's in the middle. Like, she's not mustache twirly. She's not all the way evil. She's not she's definitely not anywhere near good, but she has this like interesting line of middle ground, particularly with June, where that she walks. It's like she's a woman that wants a baby, and she completely changed the world to have a baby. And so as a villain, I use that term with a medium-sized V, she's very different. She's not trying to like kill or like get a nuclear weapon or whatever, which is awesome, and all that stuff is really great, but she's just a very interesting person, just on the face of it, in that way. And I think when building good characters in general, I think the grayer they are, the better. And you always, like they always say, you want your hero and your villain to be as good as your hero, because they push each other up the ladder of success or failure, however that works. And you want to make sure that when they butt heads, like, it is a formidable battle that's interesting and dynamic to watch. And it only works when both parties are equally dynamic and incredible and smart. It doesn't work if you only got one side of the coin. So I don't know, John, did I forget anything?
Yeah, no, that may, I was just thinking about when we would deal with Fred Waterford, he's a despicable human being, but I remember there was never any time when we tried to make him sympathetic, but I remember thinking you do have to love and respect your character in a way, even if they're horrible. You have to find the thing in them that, because in their mind, everybody is the hero of their own story, and that son of a bitch is a hero of his own story. And so you've got to know what is he really trying to fight for something real? And if that's true, even if it's a terrible thing, that is the thing that's going to ground you and lead him toward his decisions. Now, not that his decisions are good, but in his world, he is doing the right thing. And oftentimes in his case, it's just something to make himself feel bigger. But I think that's a key thing that we were struggling with, because like Nina said, we have a lot of characters who are not just gray, but in his case, just awful. So, and you can't just hate them. You can't make a mustache twirly.
Sure, absolutely.
But
Well,
what
I
we
think, go on, Nina.
What
Sorry.
we do with Fred, though, is that he's very insecure, and he has a very powerful wife, and his push and pull with her is so interesting. So like, in a way, it doesn't generate sympathy by any means, but it really digs into, the heart of that character, is that he feels so incredibly insecure. And so a lot of the moves that he makes in his chessboard, as John said, are to make himself feel more whole and less insecure, which sometimes often kind of working and backfiring against him in many ways. But that's partially one of the reasons why he has to become connected to June. He can't just do the thing that, that very bizarre threesome, he can't just do that. He has to have some kind of connection with her on some level, which is really, I mean, it's just odd, and I think, as we were talking, just, making your characters really gray and having a lot of different facets and a lot of different layers, because, people are the heroes in their own story
Sure.
in life. Hitler thought he was right. I mean, that's super fucked up, but like, he thought, he was right, and which is crazy,
Yeah.
but,
Well, I think that's exactly right. And I think that, we always talk about, characters, especially the villains, who are sometimes, I think, more fun to write. There has to be an element of relatability to them in some way. And even with respect to, we've all felt feelings of being insecure, and we've all had those moments where we've tried to build ourselves up in some way, in whatever, tool or tactic we have to do it. And so when you recognize that in a character, even if it's a character that you loathe, it's interesting and odd for us to kind of see and say, okay, if I was in that position, if I can almost appreciate that that's the tactic they took,
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe?
we have a project over at Radical Act, as we were talking about Cheadle's company. And to be honest, it's about these people stuck in a call center, and they seem kind of despicable on the surface. But then as you start to peel the onion back, you start to see very smart flash shots, kind of Lost styled at the opening of each episode. You start to realize it's a lot more complicated than that. So a lot of the balance there is like, how do you tell a good story with someone that's, I like what you said, a medium-sized V. They're not twirling a mustache, or they're not, kidnapping a child, but they've done things that are gross and despicable, and they'll have to answer for, but they're also still good people. I think me and Jason are always fascinated, what does it mean to be a good person that's done bad things, or the opposite. And I think a lot of writers are fascinated with that, because we all have a narrative. So all this stuff is totally right.
I mean, look at June. June kills someone in the pilot, and like, most people don't even remember it because you buy it back because she's so oppressed. She basically kicks a man to death in a pilot. So like, even June as a character is not, just this very squeaky clean hero. And as she, starts to build in her heroism, like, she becomes very selfish, which, if you think about some heroes, like, they have to be, in a way. And so she's not like the cleanest hero in the world, which is another thing that makes that character fascinating in general. But I think when you're writing your people, it's like, none of us are just perfect, unique snowflakes. You know what I mean? Like, we're all got our shit and the places that we come from that are dark or whatever. Like, I don't kick puppies or anything, but I've certainly done some really stupid shit in my life that I was like, whoa, that's not cute, And I think when you allow your characters to to be human a little bit more, and that the hero doesn't always have to look like the knight in shining armor, and you allow yourself, your character, allowing the character to have space. You can come up with some really amazing material that will, keep you for many episodes of television, hopefully many seasons of television.
Sure, absolutely. We've got about 15 minutes left. I want to switch some gears really quickly and talk career development. Erica had another great question. I'm going to modify just a touch. As a new writer, if you want to pitch an idea, what should a writer have with them? A treatment, 10 pages of a script, a full script, the pitch deck, 10-minute pitch? Let's start with, again, let's go back to John and Nina. We'll go over obviously to the nieces. What do you have when you go out with something?
Well, when Nina and I had a chance to pitch when we had no business pitching, but we wanted to get out there and kind of we wanted to do all the bad pitches, or as many as we could, so we could get the good ones sooner. And I remember back then you did have to kind of come armed with a sample, because you didn't really have any cachet, you didn't have a reputation. Usually somebody was doing us a favor. So we would come in with an existing script that they had read, and then usually we would pitch the idea. Now, we try to come in with as little, we've done tons of work. We've written down tons of stuff, but we don't do any leave behinds or any of that, because we're writers and we get paid for writing. And, I'm a captain in the WGA, so I don't want to start banging the union banner too hard. But at the same time, writing is for getting paid. And so you do your writing, you keep it to yourself, and then you pitch them the idea. You need to really bring it alive. And, a lot of us like to live in our own hole and write and not talk to people. But if you can bring that excitement that you love with that to that room and let that animate you, even if you're an extreme introvert, that is the thing that's going to sell it. They're going to see your passion for it, your pain in it, everything that you found, your whole reason for being and coming there to tell them this story is the thing that's going to sell it more than any sort of items that you may have put together beforehand.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and Jason and Jamie, you guys, when you were in the writer's room, you talked about having 200 plus general meetings in your first year with your now current manager, your manager now. I mean, talk about that, and then talk about how that, with respect to the pitch meeting.
First, I want to start off by saying John is so right. The idea that writers are to be performative in pitches is ironic beyond all meetings sometimes. But I think for Jamie and I, our manager, Scott Schulman, when he took us on, he's like, look, this is how I roll. And he's like, you're going to meet a whole lot of people. And the reality is that we did have 200 plus generals and met everybody in town, all the pods, production companies, even streamer network executives, so they knew who we were. But really that started paying dividends, because, like, for example, the Cheadle thing, they came to us saying, you guys, and of course, all these generals, we provided a sample went ahead of the generals. They all had read us. And we have this sample that everybody loves, but no one wants to buy, which is another story. We think it's hilarious, but it gets us in the door or whatever. But
we have the same thing.
Yeah, I think all writers have that sample.
Right? They have that one sample.
And you always think there's like that sample. What did you read again? You damn well know what they read. You're like, oh, that's available.
No, but Jason's right. So we met with Karen and Don or Mika at the time, and we did a general. They'd read us our project. They're like, yeah, we're not going to buy that. And we talked and we kind of discussed where we're from. And then they kind of discuss what buckets are trying to fill their mandates. And then we move on with our days. We say we're going to have a glass of wine down the road or something. And sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But Jason's right. It does pay dividends, because we did 200 of those. And I was like, Scott, for the love of God, please stop. But now I don't say that, because 3 months later, Cheadle's people hit us up and said, hey, like, you guys were like talking about, like, you guys really seem like you're interested in some fucked up thriller horror stuff. I'm like, we're obsessed with horror and thriller stuff.
Correct.
And we're like, yes. And well, we just, optioned the right to this Eastern European IP that's really successful in Russia, and we're trying to adapt it to an American version. And we're interviewing other writers, but you guys came to mind. And so I sat there and looked at Jason and said, all right, well, there you go. That's why you do it.
I would also say this could be like a whole other like Zoom session, but the world of development and your angle on it and all of that stuff is like this whole other type of writing, you know, the short story outline we really related to because we do that also in Umbrella. But you find that in development and pitch pages, you're writing prose that you're going to perform and stuff.
Yeah.
I think a lot of screenwriters, only screenwriters, would be like find that a little intimidating at first.
I mean,
you realize you're a writer, you're a fucking writer. You just
going back to what Mike said, by the way, I couldn't agree more, and I didn't chime in. I don't know how anybody writes without outlining. Like, we're writing a feature with Travis Van Winkle right now, who's an actor, had a really great idea, and the three of us are pals. And we outlined for, I'd say, 4 months. It's like a 45-page outline, but now we're just writing the script, and it just dictates the path. It's the Bible. Me and Jason don't write pilots like John was saying. We usually have a 15 to 20 minute oral pitch with the why nows, the themes, the tones, the characters, why we should do it, pilot and season 1 and beyond. But you could spend your whole life writing pilots, you know. So I agree with that wholeheartedly.
God, the last thing they want in these goddamn things, it seems these days, is the script.
Yeah, right.
No, seriously, we have a project.
Your take.
Your take.
We have a oh my God, your take. We have a project right now that we just optioned, and they said we love the script. It was based off a pilot.
Oh, we wrote the script because we actually just wanted to be writers and like write the script.
And they go, it's great.
We need a pitch.
They're like, it's great, but now we need to write. We need to practice and write out an oral pitch to take it out. I'm like, well, no, you have the pilot.
Like, in the writer's heart, in their souls, they just wish that it was like the old days where you hear the legend lore of like, they just buy the spec and then
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
You're just sitting in a room, and then your agent takes it out, and you get a call and a check, and it's that easy. But
me and Jason have written hundreds of pages this year of oral pitches and one pilot.
yeah, there you go.
That's about accurate.
Folks, we got about 10 minutes left. We're going to wrap up with some other questions. But one of the things that each one of these folks touched on, I think, over the course of this is the importance of networking, the importance of building a tribe, the importance of being in a room, working with other screenwriters, and really having screenwriters as allies. And I think that's so important. And the other thing that I think is so important is sharing resources, knowledge, being a part of a larger conversation. And that's why I want to take this second just to kind of introduce to you, if you're not familiar with it, the idea of our Stage 32 writers room. Jamie and Jason, as I said, were in our writers room last week. Nina and John are going to be there very soon because I will rope them in.
Got it.
It's a group of like-minded screenwriters from around the world. It's the largest virtual screenwriters group in the world. We have folks quite literally from as far away as Europe and Asia who will tune in and be a part of these weekly webcasts that are not only on Wednesdays, but they're also peer-to-peer networking webcasts that take place on Thursdays, Mondays, and everyone is different. We have a breakdown webcast where we talk about an aspect of screenwriting. We have our Pitch Tank webcast where you as a writer are able to pitch your project for feedback to an executive or to industry pros like our folks here. We have our Executive Hour webcast where people come in and we do this. You ask questions, you ask things that are burning on your mind. And then finally, we turn it over to you, and you, over the course of the month, will have written something, some pages, whatever, and we give you feedback live on those. And on top of that, we have our brand new open writing assignments where production companies, guys, you'll love this. Production companies, managers, agents, they'll come to us and they'll say, hey, we have needs. We're looking for this type of project. Do your writers have anything? And our writers room members exclusively get access to those and are able to submit samples and scripts and for free and be a part of a submission process directly to production companies that are looking for material. And there's so many other options and benefits. For those folks who want to give this a shot, I'm going to put a link in the panel right now in the chat box. Make sure you jump on that link right now. Before we sign off, you can sign up. That's a free month that you can be a part of this. Again, it's so imperative to be a part of the conversation and to treat this as an investment in your career. We talked about whether you're using film school or it always comes down to networking and who you are able to really connect and collaborate with on a meaningful level. I mean, Jamie and Jason were doing it from the womb. Nina and John a little bit later, but they also found each other, and that's what's really important. So
Let me just say, I would have killed when I first started to have a Stage 32. All I had was a map quest and like
Thomas Guide, even just
Thomas
to
Guide
betray our age, like
and desperation, honestly. And last time we hung out, Jason, everybody's like, well, how do you network? How do you get this? How do you get that? And the answer is this. I mean, there was no like practice your pitch or throw your log line up or like have open writing assignment options like at Stage 32. There was none of that. The only way we could do that.
Nina and John, Jamie and Jason did it the same way. You just learn it by filling in front of people, and then you tweak it off of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
I just want to say that out loud. It's a huge thing to have this type of community because it's a big old world, and like I think Mike was saying, everybody wants to do it, and to be around like-minded people that will give you honest opinions and also to help you network is crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, folks. Appreciate that. Let's have one more question as we sort of wrap it up. Let's look ahead to the future. Amazing. Imagine you're sort of gazing into whatever crystal ball that you think you have, and where do you think this is all going? Where do you think streaming's going? Are we getting more sort of theatrical? Are we going to be sort of doing the phone thing where we're watching short clips again and a Quibi 2.0? Where do you see streaming sort of going? Who wants to take this one?
I don't know. I think in the wake of Quibi just, biting the dust, I don't know if someone's going to take a risk to do that again anytime soon. But my personal feeling is I think, what I'm seeing just as a viewer, taking myself out of, writing for a second, is like, I think, you're getting so much specific content. It leaves like a nice berth for a lot of different people to come in and write, and which is why when we teach our classes and stuff, we're always talking about how unique everybody is and how that individuality really comes through in people's writing. And I think you're seeing that in streaming services. Like things are so specific now. Like even Mike, when he was talking about like there's within AMC there's like an option for like here's Black content, and you're like, whoa, like that's awesome. Like back in the day it was like you had cop shows, you had fucking medical shows, maybe every once in a while a fireman show, and like then you had some family shit, and there was all white, and maybe you had like a Coke and Peep here and there, but so now it's so interesting. Like there's all kinds of stuff. We got all kinds of dystopias. You want one with a pandemic, you want one with cars that run on blood, you want one where it looks like a totalitarian theocratic regime. Like you take a dystopia, you can pick your, so many. So I think that's really cool because I think, we all have a voracious appetite for content. I want to escape all the time. I don't want to sit here and fucking deal with this crazy ass reality. Like, John has more rights over my body than I even do, which is crazy. Good thing he's a good dude, but like, it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of, I don't know. I unfortunately read a lot of these pundits for the entertainment industry. I should stop doing it because they're always doomsayers about all this and how the nichifying of the industry is bad. But like Nina's saying, you can find your tribe. And I think there is a tribe for everybody. And we are seeing that there's an appetite for this stuff. And I think that's only led to more interesting stories, more representation, and just frankly, just better stories. I mean, honestly, I want to see new shit. And I'm glad that we're getting new people's points of view out there. So
I agree.
that can only help us in the future.
I agree more. I just want to see more diverse, unique stuff. I mean, Handmaids, Umbrella, Severance, Legion, like there's just so much, this world's so weird and quirky and unique, and there's no right or wrong. There's just interesting stories. And I think everybody that's listening should just be fearless and look inward and say, what's the crazy, funky, weird shit I could tell?
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. Like she said, we're all done with, I think, watching the procedurals, the doctor and the fire. And it's just like, yeah, they're there. But I think that a lot of storytellers can do much better and more unique stuff and really expand all of our minds with their crazy unique thing that I never would have thought of. And that's what's exciting about
And
it.
I think there's a place for that. Just to add on to that, like we should, as storytellers and writers and content creators, be like the most emboldened versions we've ever been, because all these places want you to bring them ideas that they've never heard. And it's not that it's like, oh, every idea's been told. Fuck that. There is so much crazy ass shit stewing around in your brain that you've now just been given license by Hollywood to give your angle on and try to get out there and pitch it. And I don't think it was like that 30 years ago. So I think that's very promising for the future.
Absolutely. Well, and I said this at the top of the hour, or at the top of this webcast. You folks, I mean, you're bringing it. You're bringing it every season, every episode, every day. So thank you so much. And again, you're right there, telling these stories and being a part of the storytelling. And for that, thank you so much. Thank you for developing your talent, your craft, and then thank you so much for spending this time with us here and being so generous with your time, your insights, and really giving back. I cannot thank you enough, and I know the folks watching can't thank you enough as well. Folks, I just put the 2 most important links of the day in the chat box. Make sure you click those before we sign off, or they go away forever. Folks, thank you so much. This was really a fantastic afternoon. I know we've got to go get back to the day jobs. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and weekend.
Everybody go right.
You
Yeah,
guys.
exactly.
Let's go right, guys.
Now Nina and John and us are going to develop a project together. That's how that works. So.
Done
Yeah.
and
There you go.
Let's do it.
Bye, guys.
Take care.